Hello, movie patient, and welcome to Film Therapy. I am Brienne, also known as Miss Movies, also known as your film therapist. I'm not a real therapist, but I play one on the internet just for this show. And as with every session of film therapy, I have a guest patient, and my guest patient today is Ben Bateman. Hello, welcome. Here is your microphone.
What's up? How's it going?
I was like, maybe I need to reframe this.
Yeah, because my
You're a
head.
bit taller than
Oh,
I
we're gonna move
am,
the camera. Okay.
slightly.
Oh my God.
Maybe?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
works, right?
It's good.
Kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I
I
like
want
your.
to make sure your microphone's on because sometimes I switch them off. It is on.
I'm on.
That's excellent.
I like your Joker poster.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
Joker is the mascot of this show, mainly because he's crazy.
Right.
And the little like thumbnail that says film therapy has Joker on the couch and Harley Quinn is like, talking to
Right.
him.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 For sure. I'm a big fan of Batman the Animated Series and Mark Hamill as Joker. I like
hmm
was a thing growing up. I used to come home and watch that show every day, and I like had all the DVDs before DVDs went out of fashion.
Which is sad.
It is sad. All those college kids that had like the
hmm
I have 800 DVDs and like not relevant
Yeah,
anymore.
I was one of
Yeah.
those. Now they're all in like a CD case
Yep.
because that's like it's like the transition. Like CDs then went away,
Yep.
and then DVDs were still around
Mm-hmm.
because they hadn't figured out like how to digitize, DVDs in terms of like being on a device for you, kind of like the iPod was.
Right.
So then we had DVDs, and now it's like, well, people do get Blu-rays because they like to collect Blu-rays still.
Yeah, but I don't like that. Still, to me, feels like that's just. I don't think that's gonna last.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's gonna go the way of Tower Records
Tower
at
Records.
some point.
Sweet reference.
I love Tower Records. I'm sad that it's not around anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is definitely a place that I would go to. I love the movie Empire Records,
Yeah, it's a
so
good
it
one.
makes it even more nostalgic now that there are no places like that.
Who directed that movie? It's directed by somebody
Oh,
relevant.
like I know.
Oh no, I think.
Like, I don't know who directed pretty much anything.
Oh really?
Mainly because unless it's Rennie Harlan and Cliffhanger, I'm really not going to know much as in terms of directors, just because it's more of a face thing.
Yeah. Right.
Like because they're not in the movie and I don't see their face, I don't connect them. Does that make sense?
Yes, I for a second there when I saw Randall, I was like, "Hey,
Uh-huh.
Randall." I thought somebody was trolling me because when they asked me the Indiana Jones question, my answer was Randall on Schmodown.
Oh.
That's been ongoing, so that wasn't the case. But hey, Randall Sands and Clint, you weren't trolling me. Welcome.
So Ben Annalise, hello. Ben was on the movie trivia Schmodown with Andrew Guy.
Yeah.
They were team action. They are team action going against the Night Sisters. There was a question about what is Indiana Jones's actual name, and no one at the table knew it, which was depressing.
Yeah.
But interesting in terms of like you guys are a lot younger than I am, so I can see how maybe you
Right.
would miss that.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not so much that we don't like Indiana Jones. I've seen all of the Indiana Jones movies, but it's
Mhm.
not like they're not like. For instance, we've never done an Indiana Jones movie on our show. It's we think of them as
Sure.
kind of like adventure movies from a little bit of an earlier era that like we like, but they don't feel like our movies as much. And I
Mhm.
think we could do them. Maybe we will do one.
Right.
It's just not our favorite stuff. And I think when you say like action adventure, people are just like, you have seen and know every Schwarzenegger movie, every Stallone movie, all the
Sure.
Indiana Jones movies, and like we have kind of a specific brand that is a little bit more
Right,
in the
'cause
drama.
Ben and Andrew host a show called Action Movie Anatomy, which is on the Popcorn Talk Network on Wednesdays.
Yes, we do it
Is
on
it Wednesdays?
Wednesdays. Yep, live at
Okay.
12:30. And you came on with Stacey Howard, and you guys came on for Cliffhanger.
We did. This is why I know that Rennie
Yeah.
Harlan directed Cliffhanger.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
I did my Cliffhanger homework, so I know a little bit too much about that movie.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
But for those of you who are first joining us, here is how film therapy works. Basically, I have 3 questions that I'm going to ask my guest patient. They're the same 3 questions each time. What is a movie that inspires you? What is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, maybe it's happy. And what is a film that helps you through difficult times? I started this podcast I started this web series, I should say, because I do suffer from depression and I find that movies help me through depression. And I figure they must help other people through depression as well. And I do want to have a disclaimer of I'm not a therapist. Ben is not a therapist. If you need help, please call 911, go to your doctor, find someone that can help you immediately. And so
Yeah.
let's get to know you a little bit more, even though we've kind of gotten to know you.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
What's your origin story, Ben?
What is my origin story? Well, I'm from Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
I grew up there, and I moved here in 2009. The second time I moved here, the first time in 2005
Okay.
when I was 17. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts for a year. I
Oh,
graduated high school when I was 16, and I got the scholarship to this acting school because I thought I wanted to be an actor.
right.
My hair was like this long. I'm doing my shoulder
What?
skills on audio.
No, I don't believe
Oh,
you.
there's some funny pictures. I gotta show you. Yeah, and I worked at a comic book store and I rode a bike around. I had big floppy
No,
pants.
none of this makes
Yeah,
sense to me right now.
and it was cool. I wasn't quite ready for LA yet. I went back to Seattle, worked for Nordstrom for a few years, and that's.
I worked for Nordstrom
Did
too.
you?
Yeah,
I loved working for Nordstrom.
they
Yeah,
were pretty good.
yeah.
I worked in Point of View.
I worked in designer stuff, and
I bet.
yeah, and
That makes sense.
I got so the origin story because a lot of people on like the internet and various digital places recognize me as this guy, like the nerdy guy in a suit. And um, with Nordstrom, I got these suits, these like custom suits. They weren't even like designer. They were just we got a super sick deal. It was like 40% off cost.
Right.
So I could order these custom suits for like $200. They were like $1,200 suits. And I got 3 of them, and I started wearing suits, and I cut my hair. And I was like, this is sweet. I was like, this suit thing's great. And then when I moved to LA in 09, I stopped wearing them because nobody wears suits in LA.
Right.
And I was trying to be a musician and actor. And,
Unless you're a lawyer, a criminal.
yeah, right. So I used to sing and play guitar. I mean, I still do, but that used to be my career. I came out here to do that. And one day I was like, started hosting 3 years ago on accident. And I was like, I should wear a suit. I like wearing suits. And then somebody was like, oh yeah, that totally fits your personality. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. I was like, this feels so natural to me. Yeah.
I love it. I told my husband because he was here, like he left right before you got here, and I was like, he's gonna be wearing a suit. I need to dress up a little bit more. So I put on this shirt, which I call my Hunger Games shirt,
Yeah, it's a Hunger
my
Games
Katniss shirt, because I was like, and I'm like, I'm still gonna wear jeans.
You could be like a bird of. You can also could be like a bird of prey. If you had
bird of prey.
if you had a bow, I guess she uses a bow, so maybe I'm just on the Katniss train here. So
I
movies are
love
pretty good.
Katniss.
Movies are pretty good.
Now, when you say you fell into hosting, how did that happen?
Totally random. So people always say when they talk about LA, like it's about who you know in right place, right time. That's like those are like the 2 cliches.
It's totally true.
I hear it all the time, but like I moved to LA and like I said, acting and music was what I came here for. And I started this acting group because I couldn't afford acting classes. And I got like the 10 people I knew that were actors. And I was like, we're going to leave our egos at the door. We're going to train each other for 3 hours, 1 day a week. And we did this for a solid year. We trained improv. We did fake auditions. It was really fun. One of the guys that I knew from that, 4 or 5 years later, I ran into it at an improv show. And I was like, I'm really into the NBA now. And he was like, called me the next day and he's like, hey, I host this show and my host can't show up. Can you show up and talk about the NBA? And I was like, I've never done that. And he's like, trust me, you'll be good at it. And I like showed up and I did it. And I was like, this is great. And then they brought me, it was called Bite Size TV. They brought me back a few times. From there, it was kind of just like a landslide of small things that all spun together. And now it's my career. So
nice. I love it.
Yeah.
It's totally right place, right time. Always.
Yeah.
It's always that way. Like who you know, that's why you go to college in Southern California. So you get to meet everyone.
Yes.
Like that's kind of how it starts. That's how I started too, because like I, went to SC, met my husband there. And when I started writing reviews in 2004, just on my website at the time, one of his fraternity brothers called him up and was like, hey, would your girlfriend at the time want to be on our show? We need a girl and we need her to talk about movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. It's called The Film Vault, which is still on.
Oh, cool.
It's just a podcast, so they don't do on camera stuff.
Got it. Okay.
But they're still going. I was with them for 7 years.
Wow, cool.
So very long time.
Sweet.
And then branched off. I was like, I gotta fly, guys. Sorry. Yeah. It's time.
What's the movie? Oh, I'm a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
Peacocks don't fly.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into our first question, which is, what is a film that inspires you?
Okay, a film that inspires me. See, inspires is like such a hard one.
It is, because it can go many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, inspires is sort of like it's that like the good feeling that gives you the feel goods.
Yes.
What I've found the older I've gotten is that the films that inspire me are the ones that make me kind of I talk about fist pump moments a lot. It's a thing from our show.
Right.
And we describe the fist pump moment as it's that moment when you feel something and it makes you just excited. You want to like look around and be like, are you seeing this right now? It can be anything. And I think there's certain movies that have, when I've watched them enough times, so many fist pumps that it's almost just like watching one continuous fist pump moment. But it's
right. Like all of the Fast and Furious films.
well, what I was just gonna say though, for me, when you asked the question, inspiring, I think fist pumps come in all shapes and sizes. It's not the action fist pumps that inspire me.
Okay.
It tends to
great.
be movies like one of my favorite movies of all time. I've talked about this way too many times recently because it's like such an odd movie. Is The Weatherman, the
Okay.
Nick Cage movie
Yeah.
from 06, the Gore Verbinski movie, and like
All I can think of is Camel Toe right
can I
now.
curse on this
That's
or
it.
no?
Absolutely.
I fucking love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever. And there's a scene in that movie that I have watched on YouTube like 40 times in the last few weeks for some reason. I'm not really sure what it is about it, but it's the scene where he's pretty beaten down and he's pretty much accepted that he's going to lose his wife, his ex-wife now. She's not going to get her back. His dad's got cancer. And he's gone to the living funeral, and he's tried to say the thing, and then the lights go off when he's like, "When I think of my dad, I think of Bob Seger's Like a Rock," and then the lights turn off, and he can't explain it. And so Michael Caine shows up, and he's like, "Weatherman," and he pulls him in the car, and he sits down. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And then he puts the song on, and he's like, "I don't really get it," and he has to explain to him why Like a Rock makes him think of his dad, and it's like what you start to realize about that scene, because it's just like a 3.5 minute scene. It's actually a beautiful scene. It's the best scene in the movie, I think, by a pretty significant margin. This is this guy who takes the Hello America job. He gets it in that scene, and he's like, that's a remarkable salary. It's $1 million a year, more money than I ever made. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and he's like, he's just beaten up his kid's guidance counselor because he's, remember he tries to like molest his son. He's like trying to man up and take care of life, is what he says, but he's just still kind of a fail. He's still kind of a fail. He's this unhappy guy who's like kind of settling, even though he has this wonderful life, according to most people. He's going to lose his dad. He kind of, everything he tries to do, like there's the best moment is his dad looks at him and he goes, "I read your book." And Cage is like, "Fuck." He's been working on the book forever. And he's like, "I chucked it. I threw it away." And the scene ends with Michael Caine's like, "Sometimes in this shit life, we must chuck some things." And it's this cathartic moment where you're just like, it's such a black comedy, and it's such a weird movie, but there's something about that scene that really speaks to me and just kind of inspires me to just be like, there's humor in everything. There's humor in all the darkness. And you can attach, like, there's something about loving them, that movie and that scene as much as I do makes me feel like I'm going to be able to find specific things in life that no one else thinks are as great as I do, that I'm always going to love, that I can always come back to. That movie just makes me feel good.
Right.
Sure
like
why.
Weatherman, like the only thing that really stuck with me from that film is like, you're an adult and you'll have $1 in your wallet, like something like that. And so anytime I have $1 in my wallet, I think of Weatherman, because I'm like, I'm an adult. I need more than $1 in my wallet.
The scene is chock full of good scenes. Like that scene at the very beginning when he's standing in line at the DMV and the guy looks at him and he's like, "Hey, dude." He's like, "Hey." And he's like, and the guy's like, "Hey, can I have your autograph, man?" He's like, "I'm not who you think I am." And the guy's like, "You're Dan Spritz." He's like, "I'm not Dave Spritz. I'm not Dave Spritz." It's just like Cage in that movie is such a moron, but he's so fucking good at it. He's the most lovable, like, indecent guy. I don't know. It's just amazing.
There was this one time I was at, so my in-laws belong to this country club, so I was allowed to go there. I don't belong to a country club because I'm not that kind of rich. So I was there with my husband, and we were having lunch, and in walks Dallas Raines. Dallas Raines, for those that live in Southern California, he is a weatherman. Obviously, his name has been somehow changed to be awesome.
Yeah, Dallas Raines.
So, so he's in there, and he was talking to some people, and I heard someone say, "So what's the weather going to be like today, this weekend or whatever?" And I just like wanted to put my head on the table like, "Oh, of course you're going to ask the weatherman what the weather's going to be like." And like, he just totally was fine with it. But I immediately go to this movie and think of him like, I don't want people asking me what the weather is. I tell them all the time. Like, that's all they ask me. Well, ask me other questions.
Yeah,
like,
it's so good. And he says he's so powerless That's one of the best things in that movie. Is he's so powerless because he doesn't predict the weather. At the end of that scene, when his dad finally looks at him in the car, and he's like, because he's like, it's just that you could talk about the book. It's something I've done a long time, and I've gotten good at it. Like you with predicting the weather. And he's like, but I don't predict it. No one does. It's just wind. What the fuck? It's like, it's so good.
Oh man. So does this movie just inspire you like on a level of, inspiration in terms of like writing or humor, or where does the inspiration come for you in terms of just like
I think it's got everything I like in my, so there's like, I like all different kinds of movies, but this kind of movie, the pacing, the tone, it's like everything I like about movies is like, because I'm a pretty mellow kind of person. I'm not like I like what I like, but I'm not like passionate in the way. I don't get super angry. I don't get super sad. I tend to be, I like dry humor and things like that. So this movie, I love Nick Cage. It's this movie
you
just
got
like
a good I can't think of the word right now, but you do a good voice.
Oh, good Cage.
Yeah. Yes.
And
imitation.
Thank you. Yeah, this movie, like for me, I think there's something about it. It's like I think about it in some ways where I'm like, I could write a script like this someday. This feels like a movie that I would understand how to write. I could create something like this. It inspires me, I think, because the character, there's something about it where I'm like, I think it's inspirational because he's so successful in entertainment and he's unhappy. He's on camera.
Right.
And you're like, so you shouldn't just chase the bigger job and the more money, because your wife will still leave you. He's still like this selfish guy. It's almost hilarious because we're talking about writing a movie and he tries to write a book in the thing. He's like, I'm talented, I'm smart, I can do what I want. He tries to write a book and his book's terrible. It's like so bad. And like, that's what makes it so funny, is that he makes $1 million a year being on television. He's talking about all of the perks that he has. He lives in a great city. He gets hired on the bigger show, goes to New York. He still can't fix his family. He's still like kind of a failure. He's super selfish. Like I would call myself like definitely like a pretty egocentric, like narcissistic person. I try to be aware of it and like not be that way.
We all are.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think we're all susceptible to being that way. And he's just the worst. There's the scene when they go to couples therapy and they both write down, the trick is like, you're supposed to write down a secret you have from your significant other that you're never going to show them. And they both write it down. And the trust that you give it to them. And he immediately runs in the bathroom and reads the one she writes. He gets so mad because she's like, I thought Dave's book was bad. The science fiction or whatever. I didn't get it. And then in the next scene, they're sitting there at lunch and he's like, it wasn't science fiction. She's like, what? He's like, well, actually, there was a scientist. She's like, what the fuck, Dave? She gets so mad. It's like,
wait, does she? I can't remember the movie that well, but does she then read what he wrote?
Yes.
Okay, what did he write?
And his line is, during marriage, I felt BJ's lacked passion. Opinions differed. I thought very, or something like that. And he's like, they end up arguing about the importance of blowjobs or something like that. But even the way he writes it, opinions differed. I thought very. It's like, who are you? Nobody writes like that. You're an idiot.
Oh man. That is amazing. Couples therapy, guys. Gotta try it.
It's good. Watch The Weather, man. I love it.
Let's go to our next question, which is, what is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, maybe it's happy.
Well, so a couple ones come to mind. There's a story I've told a lot of times, and I'll tell it again. I mean, not a lot of times, like 2 or 3 times or something, but there was this stretch of run that I realized pretty recently from about 96 to 99 where my dad and I would go to the movies like once a week together. And I'm 28.
Awesome.
So it was like when I was like 7, 8 years old, the whole time I was about 11. And what I didn't realize was that there was like turmoil going on with my mom and dad, and my parents got divorced in 1998, or they split up in 98. And I was a little kid, so I didn't really know. Right. And this one weekend, my mom went out of town and my dad and I went to the movies, and we went and saw the movie Ronan. The De Niro movie. I got to see sweet movies as a kid. My dad took me to see I was like 10 and he took me to see Ronan. Like he's like digging a bullet out. I'm like, what's going on? This is great. And we get home and like he cooks a steak. Like I'm like sitting there cutting into my steak and I'm like holding the first bite and he's like, your mother and I are splitting up. And I like just like started bawling and lost it, put the food down and like obviously didn't have a bite of my food. I was like, rocked, shattered, had no idea what that meant. And
you were 10?
I was 10, yeah.
Okay.
it's weird because I have more emotional memories of like things that happened in movies.
Right.
I even have movies that I can think of watching where the experience of watching it, I felt more emotional at the time. Like I was a 10-year-old who was feeling emotional. So like I wasn't
Mhm.
that many years removed from crying about shit that didn't matter.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like I know that was an emotional moment, but I'll never forget that movie and the fact that that was the movie we saw that night, if that makes any sense.
Yes. No, it's all this is how psychology works. Like certain
Yeah.
things can bring you back. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. Certain things can bring you back to a moment. So that movie will bring you back to that moment even though that happened before, but it's so
Yeah.
close that it's the one thing that you pair up to it because of all those things. Have you ever heard of the movie Silent Fall? It's with Liv Tyler and Richard Dreyfuss.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so here's how it goes, and this is kind of what I am connecting this to. So there's a murder that has
Yeah.
happened, and there's a young boy who's autistic, but he is a mute autistic,
Yeah.
but um, he can do impressions of people. Like the
Yeah.
only time he'll speak is through an impression of someone else,
Yeah.
and usually through their words. So he'll never speak through his own words. And he witnessed this murder of his parents, and he was like he went into the closet to hide.
Yeah.
And so Richard Dreyfuss is the psychologist that is trying to figure out who did it
Yeah.
through this little boy. Like this little boy is going to somehow tell me
Yeah.
who murdered his parents. And Liv Tyler is the sister who wasn't there at the time during the murder. So then I don't want to spoil it because I think it's an interesting film, even
Yeah.
though there's parts of it that you're like, that did not work at all. But he talks about the psychology to Liv Tyler. She's like, there's so many things
Yeah.
that remind me of the moment of when my parents were killed.
Mm.
But for him, it's like it didn't happen. He's like, because his mind works differently, he has to go from the very first memory that he has,
Okay.
and then it can all connect.
Got it.
Whereas you can go like, the smell of pumpkins reminds me of the night that my parents died, or this sound, a crashing sound of a glass reminds me of the night they died. But for him, it has to be a specific moment. And I thought
Right.
that's really interesting. I wonder if that's true,
Hmm.
but I think that's interesting just to touch on in life in general, and how we as Liv Tyler's character, like there's a lot of things that'll bring us back to a moment, which
Yeah.
is why movies sometimes do that for us too.
Big time. I mean, I think movies and pop culture in general act as a really interesting framework for people around our age because we grew up in a time where like we were just pre-social media and like mass internet.
Right.
And like now, you know, I hated school. I hated it. I was not good in school. I don't know American history. I don't know geography, but I'm like a savant when it comes to like movie release dates, when it comes to like album release dates, when it comes to like number of singles that went number one from an artist, or like NBA championships, or like who was the quarterback in the 1982. Like I have like a memory for stuff like that.
Right.
And I've comic books, like all of the history that I know comes from that stuff pretty much.
Right.
And it's a lot. And it shapes what I know. And I think like I think we learn a lot more from these pieces of pop culture than our parents and the older generation probably wanted to acknowledge when we were kids, because to them they didn't have significance. Like it was different. It was like, this is just frivolous art and sports, and like the business is the way of the world. And
Right.
it's like not really like that. Like people like what they like.
I wonder if my daughter will be like, this is the date that PewDiePie started his channel, like one day.
I hope not.
She doesn't know who he is though. She'll say when EvanTube started their channel.
Yeah.
La, 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 like that's her favorite. I'm like, oh yeah, EvanTube, great.
EvanTube, sweet.
Great.
Cool.
So excited you guys passed 4 million subscribers. Yay. We're still watching your content.
Do you think that like YouTube as a platform, like I think YouTube as a delivery system will maintain. I think it's like it's gotten so big. It's like Facebook can't be replaced as the social media sort of hub. I think YouTube's the same way now. But do you think that like YouTube stars, the idea of somebody in Ohio who was like just like opening toy boxes, is going to be a thing that transcends, or that part of YouTube is dying out and it's the corporate nature of the bigger channels are beginning to replace it?
I think as TV begins to die and become digital media, yes, because it's going to start taking over that.
I think so too. Yeah.
But I mean, it already does. Like you can even see with EvanTube, how like this is sponsored by Disney and this
Yeah,
is
right.
like I'm
Yep.
like this is just commercials. These are commercials, long 20-minute commercials of a child playing a game,
Yeah.
like so that my child will play that game.
Makes sense.
Those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think though, like the homegrown
Yeah.
YouTube talent can still probably thrive.
As long as it's really good. You have to, it's
Right.
just so saturated now that you have to make something like really special. You can't just be like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm going to just slap myself in the face and I'm going to do it twice a day. And sometimes I'll puke. Like, wow. And it's like, the audio is terrible and this video is pixely. Do you care? Nope, because it's unique. And people are going to be like, this is horrible. Turn this off.
I mean, my kids will watch anything. You should see what they watch. Like it's all family YouTube channels though. And I'm just like, can we just those got to go? Cuz like once those kids get older and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore,
Yeah.
dad, like stop.
It's just like,
Stop putting this camera in my face.
it's just like anything bad. I mean,
And also, I think regulations will start to come in too because there's a lot of child workers on YouTube
yeah.
that like are selling products
Yeah.
and have a camera in their face every day. And it's like there's going to be some regulations that'll come
Yeah,
down and be
there
like,
has to be, yeah.
kids cannot be on camera for this amount of time. Like you have to have,
Yeah.
there'll be regulations.
I agree.
In
I agree.
terms of what you can post. I'm pretty positive of that.
Sure,
I don't know how
yeah.
long that'll be, but
Fair.
anyways, Ronan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that story, like, honestly, like,
Oh.
we did Ronan on the show on Action Movie
Uh-huh.
Anatomy pretty recently. It's a good movie. It's a little better than I remembered. When I had gone back to rewatch it, I felt like the big twist when they figure out that it's the ice rink and how they figure it out, I thought was bad. But Ronan has some pretty sweet fist bump moments, and definitely that stuff didn't bother me as much like this time through. It's definitely got Sean Bean, who's just fucking epic. Everything he's in.
Well, of course.
He's the best. I recently made the argument that Boromir is the best character in the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I'm like just convinced he's the best. I mean, I think you can just say Gandalf's better, like, and it's hard to argue.
Right.
But Boromir has the best scene in the entire trilogy, which is the death of Boromir at the end of the first one, I think. Anyway,
and you're a big Lord of the Rings fan in general. Like you read all the books.
My mom
right?
read the books to me.
Right. And that's why I was like, I heard you telling that story and I was like, I should probably read my kids Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I'll start with The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And see how that goes because my daughter kind of likes some fantasy stories. It's just I need to make sure that they're both old enough that I can read to them together, so that way they'll be engaged. Which means my son will probably need to be at least in 3rd grade before that's like time
for sure.
See.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to get. I don't really remember all that much about the books, but I just I definitely had like a connection to them. And in my family, my mom's like a worldwide. Like she's an artist. She has like stuff all over the world, and a lot of her earliest work, like in college, and when she was in her 20s, was like drawing characters from Lord of the Rings and drawing horses and stuff. That's like a lot of. She has these cool old like pencil drawings and watercolors of like. My mom's like a ridiculous artist, and like this is like what she did back in the day. So.
Love it. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Let's go on to our 3rd and final question, which is, what is a film that helps you through difficult times, and why is it cliffhanger?
What's a movie that helps me through difficult times, and why is it cliffhanger? Well, you know, it's funny because you've got my buddy, my co-host Andrew Guy, coming on the show next week.
Yes.
And I think I'm gonna steal his story a little bit right now.
Uh-oh.
Well, because we have the same story.
You're here first, so.
Yeah, we have the same story. And so in 2012, I went through a breakup. 2012, end of 2012. It was my first like major breakup. A girl I moved out here with, like I'd been together with her for almost 4 years, and I moved out of our place and I was living on my buddy's couch for like 3 months. I paid rent for that couch, but I discovered the movie Warrior. The MMA
just watched
movie.
It recently.
Really? For the first time?
It was great.
Did you loved it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew where it was going, but I still was like all on board for that. Mainly because like when you pull up on your DVD, there's like a photo from the movie, and I was like, well, that kind of spoils it.
They also spoil it in the trailer.
So it's like, oh well, I'm fine with knowing where things go and enjoying a story.
So I was living on this guy's couch, and I had never seen the movie Warrior. I just like had missed it when it came out. I think a lot of people missed it. I think it's that movie. That movie is honestly, of all the movies that I love, I think that's the movie that in my lifetime the perception of has changed the most drastically. Because when I first watched that movie, I would tell people like, this movie Warrior, and they'd be like, oh, I haven't seen it, or a couple people would be like, oh, that movie's good. And like now I think the perception is that that's a classic. Like
Hmm.
that's in the top 150 on IMDb, I think. Like
I gotta look it up. I
it's
believe it.
yeah, it's a shockingly well-loved movie. But I watched that movie on the couch of my buddy's house, like wasted the end of the night one night, and liked it so much that I ended up doing it like 6 more times. And
Also wasted or just
yes, I was.
oh,
It
okay,
was a
every
long
time.
stretch. It was
Okay.
a long drunk
It was
stretch.
a breakup, so
Yeah,
makes sense.
and there, I've identified definitely in movies that father son stuff
Mhm.
is definitely what gets me. That's of all the things that get me that'll like tear me up. It's father son moments, and it's not even because like I love my dad, a great relationship with my dad. I have like no traumatic memory of my father. Like dad's a good dude.
Mhm.
We've always been like good. It's just something about that stuff. Maybe it's because I love my dad so much that that stuff gets me. But there's scenes in that movie between like Nick Nolte and his sons that are just and Nolte's so good in that.
He is.
But
And
it's
he won, right?
no, he got nominated for best
Nominated.
supporting. The scene at the
I'll
end of the
have to look it up.
movie where they're in the ring. It's the final 7 minutes of the movie, and "About Today" by the Nationals starts playing, and that's actually I found out about the band the Nationals from that
Mhm.
movie. But that song starts playing, and they, Tommy Hardy goes in the corner, and he's kind of got his face down, and the song's playing, and you realize it's like the metaphor and the literal. He has no one in his corner, and he's
Yeah.
broken his arm. And Edgerton, who's like the older brother, but he knows that he's
Mhm.
always been sort of the underdog and like less of the front runner. He's standing there and knows he's gonna have to take his brother down. And he looks over, and Nolte, who's had the bender the night before, because Tom Hardy pushes him over the edge, walks in, and he's standing there, and he looks over, and Nolte gives him that nod. And the nod is like, "You're gonna have to kill your brother.
Mhm.
It's okay, but you have to do this." And Edgerton's face, he's just like so broken. Um, and then he beats him, and like he's pinning him, and he says, "I love you," and that's when he taps. And he won't let anybody touch his brother. He walks him out of the arena.
Right.
I just, honest to God, I think it's one of my 10 favorite movies ever made.
Hmm.
And I've had like a very bizarre story with that movie. Have I told you any of this stuff?
No.
So a few years ago, the bar I was working at, I was bartending, and a song by The National comes on, and I'm like singing along with it because I love The National. And this guy at the bar is singing along, and I'm like, "Oh, do you like The National?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I love that band." He's actually one of the singers, one of my best friends. I was like, "That's really cool," because I know Matt lives around here in Venice. And I was like, "It's funny, actually. I found out about this band from this movie I really love. It's kind of a silly
He's
movie,
like, and the
but I
person
love
I
it."
was talking to was Tom Hardy.
And I was like, "It's this MMA movie called Warrior. It's like one of my
Mhm.
favorite movies." And he's like, "You're never gonna believe this, but I wrote that movie."
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
I
like,
love it.
and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I wrote Warrior. Hi, I'm Anthony." And I was like, "Cool." So we became really good buddies,
Uh-huh.
and he joined my fantasy football league.
Awesome.
And then Andrew he'll tell a similar story, probably his own
Mhm.
version of the drunk watching Warrior on a couch story,
Mhm.
which I won't steal too
Because it
much
was
of.
his couch.
No, but I'll let
Oh,
him tell his story.
okay. Okay.
And we then did Warrior on the show a year ago,
Mhm.
and Anthony came and brought Gavin, the director. Gavin
Awesome.
O'Connor came on, and we
That is amazing.
did, like a whole hour 40 on that movie. We literally asked every question we could ever want to ask.
Mhm.
That was the most fun and wonderful experience as an interview I've ever had, because I got to talk to the writer and director for an hour and 40 minutes about one of my favorite movies
Right.
and tell me stories. That shot I talked about where Nolte looks over
Mhm.
is an insert because they needed it, and they'd already flown him home.
Interesting.
They'd flown him home, and they're like, "It's missing something. We need Nick. Can you get back out here?" And he's like, "I don't want to come back out." And they like flew him
Right.
back out,
He's like, I'm too old for this.
and they fly him back, and he shot it, and it's my favorite moment in the movie. So the story goes, we had them on, and we usually queue up a few scenes from the movies.
Mhm.
Not every time, but in that one, we had the final 7 minutes queued up because this was a special episode, and that's the best moment in the movie. And Gavin afterwards looks at me and he's like, "You guys are great at what you do. This was really a blast. I hadn't seen the movie since it was in theaters, and I really appreciate getting to talk about it. But can I ask you a favor?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. What is it? Anything?" He's like, "I noticed you had the final scene queued up inside. Can we go watch the scene?" And I was like, "Of course we can go watch the scene." So we go back in, everybody puts our headphones on. And I had asked him during the show, like we always do, "What's your favorite line?" And he didn't know. He's like, "I can't remember my favorite line,"
Yeah.
and so we're watching it, and everybody's got their headphones on, and we're all getting a little emotional because it's a very emotional scene. I can see him tearing up a little bit. And he's he's watching really closely, and there's that moment at the end where Hardy won't tap, and
Mhm.
Edgerton's like, "I love you," and then he taps, and Gavin goes, "That's my favorite line. That's my
Aw.
favorite line." And it was like goosebumps. It was like the most.
Mhm.
That was like the single probably moment of AMA so far that has been like, wow, like I'm getting to do what I truly want to do for a living. Like it doesn't get any fucking better than that. So that movie, just in general, I love everything about it. The story, it's such like a cheeseball sports cliche movie, but so is Rocky. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
If it's done right, then they're not really cliches. They're just the best parts of the genre.
Right. I saw The Gift before seeing Warrior. So
Oh
Joel
yeah,
Edgerton in The Gift
creepy.
and Joel Edgerton in Warrior, I was like, "Oh God, what is happening? This is a very attractive man."
Yeah.
Like, but in The Gift, definitely not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, how is he such a chameleon? He's incredible.
He's a great actor, handsome dude, very very sweet guy too.
Mhm.
Obviously because of that same community, I've gotten to meet him a couple times, and really really good dude. Like funny jokester, tells jokes, makes everyone laugh.
Nice.
Good dude. Showed up to the party in a suit. I was like, got you,
Of
man.
course, of course. See, you inspire suits and people to dress better than they normally would.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, I was in a tank top and a cardigan
Yeah.
before this, and now I'm in a Katniss Everdeen shirt.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being my guest patient on this episode of Film Therapy.
Yeah, of course.
Where can everyone that's in the chat find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ben Bateman Media. I do Action Movie Anatomy every Wednesday on the Popcorn Talk Network. We talk the best action movies of all time. And I just this morning launched a brand new station on the Anchor app, which is a brand new app, just came out. It's like Twitter meets podcasting.
Oh,
Short form audio clips shared on a little mobile radio station, all recorded directly in your phone. Partner with iTunes and Spotify, so you can share any licensed music. And if you like what I have to say, you can just click call in. You call directly in from your phone. And if I like what you have to say, I'll share it on my station. I'll talk about it. It's about 10 minutes a day talking about movies. My channel is called Fist Pump Film Club.
Yeah.
Talking about the best moments and the best movies and what's going on in the world of movies every single day. So download Anchor, Fist Pump Film Club. It's a super cool app. It's going to be huge, I think. And it's a brand new thing.
I got to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
You guys can find me all day, every day, as you do on Twitter at Miss Movies. Do I have anything coming up? I think Monday I'm on Screen Junkies News. So
Cool.
check me out there. And then I have my solo Schmodown coming up next month.
You're going to kill. You're going to kill.
We'll see how that goes. All right. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. 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 Bye.